Free room available to female only. Conditions apply. Double room for naughty girl for exchange of favours. Female tenant needed. Cheap rent. Contact me to discuss. The government says these ads are illegal, but no one else seems to care. I'm going undercover to meet the landlords who are offering free rent in return for sex.
What I was thinking, to cut to the chase, is that you sleep with me once a week.
And a vulnerable woman who experienced the riskier end of these arrangements.
One guy expected me to sleep with him, but then also put in about having group sex with a lot of his friends. So he's sort of getting a bit of a dangerous cycle.
So why is nothing being done about it? I've worked on lots of shocking stories about homelessness recently, and I know how hard it is to live a normal life when you don't have a safe place to call home. I thought I'd seen the worst of the housing crisis, but last year I heard about a new trend that I found most alarming: sex for rent. In the last 6 months, I've seen dozens of local adverts on Craigslist. Some of them are worded subtly, so could be rent-free for the right student, but others leave no doubt. Double room in return for your booty. Simple, no hassle business deal. I want to speak to the guys posting these ads, but when I contact them as a journalist, they don't respond. So I'm going undercover. Most of them ask for a photo, so it's time to get into character. I've already responded to some adverts, and the replies have been very revealing. So one landlord here has told me he'd expect sex a couple of times a week. Another one says he has a high sex drive, is very adventurous and has no limits. And he'd also expect you to surrender to him. Now that makes me feel really weird, and I'm doing this as a journalist. I can't begin to imagine what it must feel like if you're doing this for real. Here's my picture. Right, it's gone, there's no going back now. I'm just really glad I'm wearing the wig, to be honest, so they don't actually have a photo of me as I normally look. Trying the wig on at home is one thing. It suddenly feels very different on the way to my first meeting with a landlord. Right, I'll see you on the other side. From his advert, I already know Tom is in his 60s and has a one-bed flat on the outskirts of Bristol. He's already sent me more than 50 emails, including a photo, keen to arrange a meeting. The messages are mild, but he clearly feels very familiar already and goes straight in for a kiss. How are you? I already know part of the deal is sharing his bed, but I want to find out what else he's going to expect. When you say have a play, have a bit of fun, what is it you mean sort of specifically?
Don't get embarrassed. Do what you want to do, and if you want to make them, make them.
Yeah. And if I didn't feel ready to do that straight away.
Give it a week or two.
Okay, and what if even after, I don't know, a couple of weeks or a month I still felt...
Have a chat about it.
Okay. So it would be that's sort of something else is required, at some point.
At the end of the day,
yeah. So I've just come back from a meeting with the landlord. And yeah, it was really I don't know how to, intense experience, I guess that's how I describe it. And even talking about the idea of doing it made me feel so uncomfortable. It wasn't a very nice experience. It wasn't very nice at all. And it just, all I keep thinking about is how these people doing this for real must feel. One of those is 22-year-old Laura from Bristol. After a family breakdown left her homeless, she entered into a sex for rent arrangement as a 19-year-old. Laura's not her real name, and she asked for us not to show her face. You were living with friends, you were sort of sofa surfing.
Yeah.
And then you ended up getting into this sex for rent arrangement. How did that come about?
I sort of stumbled upon Craigslist. I went to London, and he he had a little, sort of almost like a little cabin outside that was like a bedroom and living room. But we had an arrangement that was written down and signed. So a couple of times a week, he'd sort of give me alcohol, drugs, take me out whatever, and then we'd have to sleep together. And that was sort of like the arrangement instead of money.
How did that make you feel?
Looking back, it's kind of disturbing, but at the time I just didn't care. I really didn't care about what was happening.
And when you came back to Bristol, did you look at doing the sex for rent arrangement again?
Yeah, I put some posts up. Everyone I spoke to just seemed a little bit dangerous. One guy that expected me to like sleep with him, but then also put in about having like group sex with like a lot of his friends. He's sort of getting a bit of a dangerous cycle.
This whole sex for rent arrangement is relatively new, and it seems to have got much bigger in the last couple of years. Why do you think that is?
For young people, it's hard to move out. It's hard to sort of like get jobs, and like even looking at shared houses, it's a lot of money, especially if you're working like minimum wage job. You're not going to be able to afford to live.
Do you think landlords are then taking advantage?
I think they are. They're using the fact that some young girls are vulnerable. They're using that against us.
So are landlords who do this breaking the law? We've asked the Ministry of Justice, who told us offering accommodation in return for sex is illegal, and those who do so can face up to 7 years in prison. I arranged to meet the next landlord at a pub in Swindon. From his advert, Mike claims to be in his 40s with a designer pad on offer, and this time I'd even get my own room. There'd be zero rent and no bills, just an FWB relationship. We've exchanged a dozen messages, nothing dodgy, but he tells me he's done this before and he's clearly got away with it.
Hi, Mike. Nice to meet you. Yeah, good. Thank you. How are you? Thank you.
No kiss this time, though when I ask for a small glass of wine, he very generously returns with a large one.
Nice, isn't it? Can I give you the money for it?
No, don't
Are you
worry
sure?
about that. It's only a glass of wine.
After some small talk, we cut to the chase. Turns out I've got competition.
Yeah. And if you had, quite a lot of interest from your,
I have. I've had 6 people reply,
yeah.
but I haven't seen anybody else yet.
Okay. Is there any rent to pay?
Well, that depends on the arrangement. you want to
Okay.
make.
Right. Okay.
So the room, the rent, all the bills, everything paid for, and I'll even give you an allowance every week, so that you feel that
Wow.
you're looked after. Okay?
That's very generous.
Well, it's up to you.
Obviously, it'd be no, nothing to pay. What's the sort of arrangement, the sort of FWB, Friends with Benefits?
Well, the benefits part is you sleep with me once a week.
The Ministry of Justice says just placing an advert is illegal, but we've checked with the police who aren't aware of any prosecutions. So it hasn't been tested in court, and a solicitor with expertise in this area doesn't think it's an open and shut case.
I'm not sure it is inciting prostitution. I think it's a grey area, and I suspect the Crown Prosecution Service and police aren't very interested in taking this on because there is no clarity. You might historically get prosecutions, and when I say historically, 2 years down the line, when a tenant has moved out, they come forward and say, well, actually, I had to have sex with him. I didn't really have an option because he threatened me with eviction if I didn't sleep with him.
We offered both our landlords the opportunity to be interviewed or to give us a statement. Tom wasn't interested.
Okay, thanks. All right, bye. Nice to meet you. Bye.
Mike says he is now living abroad. He told us he was pretending to be a landlord and that he's actually a writer and a feminist, and that he placed his advert to research his novel on the theme of the exploitation of women. He says that I was the only person to respond.
Yeah.
I hope I will hear from you.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
We look forward to reading your book, Mike. We really do. What would your advice be to anyone who is maybe considering entering into one of these arrangements with someone?
It's not worth it just for saving a bit of money. It's dangerous, it's stressful, it puts you on edge, it isolates you. If you can afford to just about get by and pay rent, just do it. Or if you have to sort of grovel a bit and apologise to family or friends, just do it. It's not worth all that stress.